Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're going to unpack a massive, honestly almost invisible, existential shift that's happening right now in academic institutions across the board. We're talking about the intersection of cyber laws, data protection, and the absolute goldmine of information that schools and universities are sitting on every single day. If you're an educator, an administrator, or honestly just fascinated by how our digital identities are managed in the modern world, you absolutely need to hear this. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this with a quick roadmap of what we're covering. First, the data custodian era. Second, the cyber and AI threat landscape. Third, new laws and massive penalties. And finally, we'll wrap up with your 10-step compliance plan to keep you secure.
Section 1. The data custodian era. Let's look at this huge paradigm shift.
Think back to the 1960s for a second. An academic department was basically a custodian of physical books, right? The main security goal was just making sure nobody walked out with a stolen encyclopedia. But fast forward to today, and wow, the reality is completely different. Educators aren't just handing out textbooks anymore, they are managing digital identities, complex network access, and massive troves of sensitive data. It's a complete 180-degree shift from physical security to hardcore cybersecurity.
But here is where the friction really kicks in. For decades, the traditional academic mindset has been wonderfully permissive. I mean, it's all about information dissemination, sharing knowledge, and societal welfare. It's a beautiful thing. But that legacy mindset of open sharing, it's actually a massive vulnerability today. To survive in this new era, institutions absolutely must learn the commercial language of data protection. They have to focus on strict secrecy and information security. If we don't shake off this legacy attitude, we're facing a literal existential risk.
Because legally speaking, the game has fundamentally changed. Under the new Digital Personal Data Protection Act, or the DPDPA, schools and universities are now explicitly categorized as data fiduciaries. So, what does that actually mean for you? It means your institution is now a strict legal trustee of personal data. You are holding the behavioral data, financial data, and even the biometric data of students and staff in trust. And breaking that trust, well, it now carries some incredibly heavy legal duties.
Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds into the cyber and AI threat landscape targeting student data.
This brings us to the immediate, everyday dangers. Ransomware. Attackers are actively hunting educational institutions right now. They're encrypting vital student records, locking up administrative databases, and even taking down online examination systems. They literally hold these critical systems hostage, threatening to disrupt education entirely unless a massive ransom is paid. Just imagine the sheer chaos of an entire exam cycle being frozen overnight. It's a nightmare scenario.
Then we've got phishing and business email compromise, or BEC. You know, hackers don't always break the door down. Sometimes you just hand them the keys. By targeting finance offices with simple fake login pages or compromised emails, malicious actors can commit serious fee fraud and execute massive data exfiltration right under the administration's nose.
And we can't just look outward. We've got to look inward at insider threats too. Disgruntled faculty, former students, or administrative staff who already have privileged access pose a huge risk. They can leak examination papers, sell sensitive student records on the dark web, or expose highly confidential research and clinical trial data. The call is coming from inside the house, so to speak.
And finally, credential stuffing. Because let's be real here, human beings love reusing password 123 everywhere. Hackers just take breached passwords from entirely different random websites and weaponize them against academic portals. They log right into student accounts, alter grades, forge certificates, or even steal financial aid. It really highlights just how dangerously interconnected academic portals truly are.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these threats are grounded in shocking statistical reality. The education sector is now the third most targeted sector globally for ransomware. Third! Closer to home, a staggering 68% of Indian educational institutions reported at least one data breach in the last 3 years alone. That's more than 2/3. And we've seen real-world casualties, like 2 major South Korean universities that were recently fined millions because a hacker accessed 2 full decades worth of student and parent data.
But wait, it's not just the hackers. It's also the shiny new technology we willingly adopt. Modern edtech and AI inject complex new vulnerabilities straight into the classroom. Think about it. Biometric proctoring tools process highly sensitive surveillance data. Algorithmic grading tools are making automated, consequential decisions about student futures that could easily harbor hidden biases. And when a teacher innocently asks a student to use generative AI tools, they might unknowingly be transferring sensitive student intellectual property to commercial large language models without any data processor agreement whatsoever.
Section 3. New laws and massive penalties. Here comes the regulatory hammer.
Let's trace how we got here real quick. In the year 2000, the Information Technology Act was introduced, mainly targeting digital documents and holding folks accountable for cyber activities. Fast forward to 2023, the DPDPA was passed, and this shifted the focus fundamentally over to individual privacy rights. And this leads us directly to May 13, 2027, when the DPDPA goes into full rigorous effect. This legal evolution means institutions now face serious civil liabilities and, in some cases, vicarious criminal liabilities for mismanaging data.
And here is the number that should make absolutely every academic administrator sit up straight. 250 crore rupees. Let that sink in. That is the maximum penalty for a single breach of security of personal data under the DPDPA.
And guys, it doesn't stop there. The penalties are staggering across the board. There's a 200 crore rupee fine for failing to notify the board of a breach, or for missing obligations specifically regarding the data of minors. There's a 150 crore fine just for failing to appoint a data protection officer if you qualify as a significant data fiduciary. These fines can easily rival an entire university's annual budget. And hear this clearly. There are absolutely no exemptions under the DPDPA just because you are an educational institution.
To make matters more urgent, there is a ticking clock. Under the DPDPA Rules 2025, if a breach happens, an institution has a maximum of just 72 hours to notify the Data Protection Board of India. 72 hours. That means you cannot wait for an emergency to hit to figure out your response. A solid, legally compliant plan has to be in place well beforehand.
So, the crucial point is getting from risk to action. Section 4. Your 10-step compliance plan.
Okay, here is your vital roadmap to lock down your campus. It starts with people. Step 1, appoint a trained data protection officer. Next, map out your processes by creating an inventory of all data flows, classifying sensitive and children's data. Then, secure your front end with DPDPA compliant privacy notices and a really robust consent system. Behind the scenes, you need strict vendor processor agreements, serious digital security safeguards, and of course, that 72-hour breach response plan ready to go. Wrap the whole shebang up by heavily training your staff and running periodic DPIA audits.
Now, if that sounds like a massive undertaking, take a breath. You don't have to build your defense from scratch. The DGPSI, which is the Data Governance and Protection Standard of India, is a ready-made end-to-end compliance framework developed by the Foundation of Data Protection Professionals in India. It is specifically designed to translate all these complex legal requirements into practical, implementable governance solutions for academic institutions. It's a real game changer.
And to address those complex AI vulnerabilities we talked about earlier, this framework offers targeted governance steps. You'll build an AI inventory register across campus, adopt a strict AI ethics policy, intensely vet your edtech vendors, and train your faculty on high-risk uses. It basically brings structure to the chaotic, wild west of edtech.
Which brings us to our final thought, and a question every library manager, administrator, and educator must honestly ask themselves today. Am I DPDPA compliant? Or, perhaps more importantly, should I be compliant? Look, the data custodian era is here. The risks are incredibly real, and the laws are unforgiving. But with the right framework, your institution can protect its students and its legacy. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Start your compliance journey today.